I wasn't really surrounded by a lot of technology at a very young age. And so for me, I really kind of learned a lot of communicational-based skills, I imagine, when I was young, because I just went out playing with a lot of kids and met a lot of people. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I had a horrible childhood, because I had a really lovely childhood, but I didn't have everything that I wanted. Shit to the wall, all in business, 5 a.m. wake-ups, spending absolutely all my time. I got rid of a relationship that I was in at that time, a perfectly functioning relationship, but it just didn't serve the business at all. I had a battle with depression. I had this big battle with kind of self-identity and who was I, and was I the person that I was pretending to be and doing these clubs and so on.
How was their reaction?
Well, my dad didn't find out until I put it out on a YouTube video 3 years later.
Wow. On today's episode of the Inspired Mind podcast, I'm joined by Jordan Platten, who is a successful entrepreneur who has overcome many challenges in his life. Despite being kicked out of university and failing at several businesses, Jordan never gave up on his dreams of making it big. After struggling with depression and dealing with the burden of debt, Jordan finally found his calling in the world of social media marketing. Through hard work and determination, he was able to build a successful SMMA business that now generates over £150,000 per month in revenue. Despite the setbacks he faced, Jordan never lost sight of his goals and is now a shining example of what it takes to succeed in the world of entrepreneurship. He shared many other incredible gems throughout the podcast, so without further ado, I'm Gadzhi and this is the Inspired Mind podcast. Quick one before we get started, I have a small favor to ask of you guys. 79.7% of you are watching the videos but have not subscribed yet. In order to help me bring you guys bigger guests, if you have learned anything from any of the podcast, please subscribe to this channel. Thank you and enjoy this episode. Cool. Perfect. Thank you so much, firstly, Jordan, for joining in on today's podcast. I want to start this podcast by really diving into your early life. And the reason being is because I believe that what we become is shaped upon our early life and what we do and what we go through. So what was your early life like when growing up?
So I come from a place called Norwich in Norfolk. I don't know if you've ever been, but it's just right out in the countryside.
I know it's 2 hours away.
Yeah, it's a while. And there's no shops in the village that I grew up in, and you get on your bike and you bike to your friends' houses for hours and hours, and that's kind of what my childhood consisted of. So I wasn't really surrounded by a lot of technology at a very young age, and so for me, I really kind of learned a lot of communicational-based skills, I imagine, when I was young, because I just went out playing with a lot of kids and met a lot of people and a range of different people as well, which I loved, which kind of created this love of nature and then the planet and so on. But then my dad got into computers and I started gaming at probably like 12, 13 years old, when you usually get into that in school. And that kind of opened me up to the world of the internet. And I had a nice childhood. There was 4 of us kids, 2 brothers, 1 sister.
I like your saying of, I think I've heard it, which is that I had what I needed, but I didn't have what I wanted.
Exactly. I did. And I think a lot of people were very quick to come up with this story of the troubles that they've had. And I think a lot of people obviously have had troubles, but I think a lot of people fabricate that as well.
Yes.
And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I had a horrible childhood, because I had a really lovely childhood, but I didn't have everything that I wanted. My parents were very sure not to spoil me, which created that desire very young, you know?
I think that's really good. And at the same time, when you're young and growing up in that village, I would say, I always think that everyone has an equal opportunity. And I think you're a prime example that even if you don't have as many opportunities around, you still have few things. Like you said, you learn communication through that. And I think that's all about perspective as well. Now, going from your early childhood, you then moved to, I'm assuming, the middle of, I think, Norwich itself?
Yeah, I did. I moved into Norwich when I moved there when I went to university.
Oh, okay. So interesting about university as well. How was your uni life?
Uni life was interesting, but to be completely honest with you, I went to university because it was just a done thing. Like it's like, okay, you go to university. I think I had this pressure that if I didn't go, like my dad would be ashamed of me or something. So I went and I studied architecture because I was a creative. I still am a creative, really. But I did it because I wanted to make money. And so that's why I studied the subject. But uni life for me was very typical of any person who went to uni. I went out a lot. I partied. I didn't actually do an awful lot of studying in my experience, which ultimately led to me being kicked out of uni after 2 years of being there. Because I wasn't attending lectures. I actually started a business on the side at nightclub events. So I have really fond memories of university, and I don't regret any of that stuff because, again, it was those communicational skills of meeting so many different people from all over the place that I gained so much from uni from. Dare I say, actually, was worth the debt that it probably got in because I've paid it off now, obviously with the business doing well. But yeah, uni life was cool.
That's interesting because my uni life was the opposite. So I would spend time just hustling and not going out partying, this and that as well. And you got kicked out of uni.
Yeah.
As a parent, your parents must want you to do great at university, get a great job. How was their reaction?
Well, my dad didn't find out until I put it out on a YouTube video 3 years later.
Wow. Wait, so you didn't tell your dad at all?
So I told my parents that I dropped out. Because at the time I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder when I was like in my young 20s. I think I had a point to prove to the world, and I think I did until I had started doing reasonably well in the business, to be honest, and that drove me a lot. But I also had a bit of ego and pride as well, and I think that stopped me from actually being vulnerable. And I think that's the same for a lot of young men. And so I didn't want to tell my parents that I actually got kicked out of university because I was ashamed of it. And I was also pretty scared of what their reaction would be. So I told them that I dropped out because I wanted to move into a career in sales, which is what I ended up doing before I started my business. But yeah, my dad found out about 3 years later, thankfully, when the business was already successful. But it was on a YouTube video, and I kind of just made a video about it, not even thinking about the fact I didn't actually tell him I got kicked out. And he wasn't happy at all. Like he was very annoyed with he was very angry with the lie. But I think it was softened by the fact that I'd actually managed to make something of myself. So
that makes sense as well.
Yeah.
I mean, every parent, there was a moment in my third year, I wanted to drop out. I just kept going, but it's that feeling like I want to drop out, not tell anyone. And then once I'm successful, I was like, people will find out and I don't care. That can be part of my story as well. And I think there's a great story about university dropouts. Like not all of them are successful, but I think you were successful in your hard work as well.
Yeah.
When you dropped out of uni, I think many people will resonate with this because, as I said, when I was at uni, I had these thoughts of dropping out because once you start looking at the world from a different lens of what you can make money with the online opportunities, we start wanting to do that. But how did you feel when you dropped out of uni? Did you have a plan, or did you just hated what you were doing?
Well, it was the second year in that I lost love for the subject because I found out that I'd have to study 7 years to get like a 30k average salary when I left, because it's just one of those industries that's been revolutionized. And I wasn't prepared at all for being kicked out. It was in January, we just come back after the Christmas holiday, got a letter through the post, and it was actually myself and 4 other friends that got removed at the same time. So it was a complete shock. And at the time, I was doing these nightclub events. As I said, I had a little events business, but that was failing miserably because January, nobody wants to go out. No, everybody's broke. And so I actually got myself in loads of debt. So it was actually a really, really troubling time. But it was a time of huge growth. Whilst it was probably one of, if not the most difficult period of my life, because I had a battle with depression. I had this big battle with kind of self-identity and who was I, and was I the person that I was pretending to be and doing these clubs and so on, and how was I going to get out of this position? So it kind of forced me into this corner of immense growth, both kind of mentally and just physically within my world.
What helped you to get out of that?
Jumping into something new, being able to get myself into a new challenge, and that was for me was sales. And I jumped into the sales industry because I thought if I'm going to have to make money as soon as I can to get out of debt, that's the thing that probably makes the most sense. So I jumped into that, and I was absolutely useless at it at the start. But the challenge of that and knowing that the only way I was going to get out of that position was through mastering that skill was something that I kind of used as a crux. And it built that internal confidence and just build up that internal dialogue again. So definitely moving into sales.
I think sales is a skill which I'm seeing everyone nowadays doing really well with. And I think it's only going to grow from this place. Someone who wants to become good with sales, what would be the number one skill do you think they need?
I think sales ultimately is just about having a diverse ability to communicate with a wide variety of people. And I think that really, the foundations of being a good salesperson actually just come down to the foundations of you as a human being, like how open-minded you are. And how open-minded you are to other people's opinions and other people's way of lives. Because the worst salespeople in the world are the ones that presume they've made the sale before they even speak to someone. That paint everybody with the same brush and think that everybody thinks in the same way that they do when they simply don't. And we need to understand other people's personalities. We need to understand what makes them click, even right down to the smallest detail where, for example, in our company, when we get new employees, we actually mark down their personality score, like a Myers-Briggs personality test, the ENTP and so on, if anyone is listening has heard that. Because when we communicate with those people, we want to communicate with them in the style that resonates with them the most, that actually matches their personality. And you do the exact same thing in sales, but it's something that not a lot of people think about. And the other most important thing I would say is always learn your script. If you want to start off with a framework and always have a framework that's proven, but never use that script and read off it. Learn it like it's drama in school, like you're doing a play or a monologue or something. And in doing that, you're going to be able to introduce your own tonality and you'll understand the reasons why you're saying what you're saying rather than just reading words, you know?
Makes sense. I want to come to the sales part again, but I want to dive back to you leaving uni. What step did you take after leaving uni?
So once I got out of uni, I just applied for. First of all, I just panicked a lot, and and then I applied for a lot of jobs that are in the local area. And in my area, we have quite a few. We did have quite a few boiler room style kind of sales centers in the advertising industry, actually, online publications, and it was like 100 cold calls a day. So it was proper smashing the phones, massively high turnover. If you don't hit your targets, you're going to get the sack kind of job role. So I jumped straight into that and then worked my way through one job. It got to where my peak I could get earning wise in that company, jumped into another, did the same again, and then.
You had no prior experience in sales?
I had no prior experience. I think, no, I had no prior experience in sales in an actual sales-based environment, but I think everybody in their life has some way of sales experience if you've worked in industries like, I worked a lot in restaurants as a waiter when I was young, and you communicate with a lot of people. I did PR on the street in university to get people in the clubs. You've got to have some level of sales wit to pull people in from that. But you do those things. And by the way, I'm what I would call a introverted extrovert. Okay. To my core, I'm an introvert. I have a facade of an extrovert because that's what really gets us somewhere in life, and that's what builds authority and gains respect. But internally, I like my own company, and I'm an introvert. And even going through that sales process, that was an incredibly hard thing to learn. And I think a lot of people discount if they are an introvert that they can even do sales, and you absolutely can. It's very uncomfortable, but you can do that.
And after you went through all those sales jobs, what led you to starting a business? Was it just a thing of like, that's the only way you're going to grow to something more than earning a certain amount?
I was earning decent money in these sales jobs.
How much were you earning?
But when I quit, I was doing 55k a year, which probably is not comparable to London, but in Norwich, at the age of 22 years old,
it's a good amount.
Yeah, at 22 years old, that was good money where I was, and so I certainly a lot more than my friends. But I was still doing the same thing as everybody else. And you're saving all year. You go on this one holiday, and then like you get to the end of the holiday, and it's that thought. It's the thought in my brain that term that everybody says. And they probably say it all over the world, but in England or when you're on holiday, you say, "Oh, back to reality tomorrow."
Yes.
And I fucking hate that shit. Can I swear?
Yes, you can.
I hate that. It's like because and I remember saying it to I actually remember my girlfriend at the time saying it to me on this holiday, and it just hitting me, and I was like, that's such a fucked up term. Yep. It's such a messed up thing. Back to reality, and people get that every week on a Sunday from a Monday. And I think that hit with me, and I was like, "How many am I going to live my life when my reality is something that I fear, and I have to escape it through a holiday? Whereas a holiday isn't some mechanism of escapism.
Yeah.
Like a holiday could actually just be my life, not actually just being on a beach resort all the time because I wouldn't be fulfilled, but actually not fearing going back to my normal life, And it was that joint with this day in the office, a specific day in the office where I was sat and I was listening to other people talking about their holidays and resonating about their holidays. And I was like, I'm not going to go through this cycle my whole life and I need to change something here. So I started looking into online business. First of all, actually, funny enough, I stumbled across Amazon FBA.
Okay.
I discounted it because I didn't want to have to put a lot of time up front to potentially see a reward later on. I knew that this was my time. I needed to do something that I could do pretty instantaneously. Being in sales, I found the agency industry, and the agency industry is a sales-driven industry. So it just made the most sense to me. And I set a figure in my mind of how much I wanted to earn before I'd quit my job, my minimum outgoings that I had. So enough to live my usual life, but not any luxuries. It was about 1,500 quid a month. And within 2 weeks, I was kind of cold calling companies in the evening, a little bit on my lunch break. I was emailing in the morning. And I signed up my first 2 clients and then quit my job.
Interesting. The business you chose, I think in a way was perfect for you as well because of the skills you had already. Do you think if you started the same business, but without the skills you had in sales, do you think it would have been difficult or you would have given up in that business? Or was there any other businesses you tried? I know the event something related to events.
Yeah.
But which you just mentioned as well. But was there anything else just before the SSMA?
I tried a clothing brand once when I was in college. I started a clothing brand and I did print T-shirts and stuff, and I did all the drawings and stuff, which didn't really go to plan. I sold to some friends, but I never really made it past. It was back when instead of using Shopify, you used Big Cartel. I don't know if you can remember Big Cartel.
No.
It was the original. It was like the OG Shopify. So I did that, and I created this store. And then it didn't really work out. So I apart from that, there's nothing else. My first experience was in school drawing Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I used to draw them and sell them to people.
So you were always an entrepreneur in that sense.
In that sense, in the sense that yes, I suppose so. But I don't think that I knew I had to start I was always going to start a business. Okay. I think I just knew I wanted to make some money of some sort. I mean, I actually used to have a dream that I would like to work in the Gherkin one day, but I couldn't think of anything worse than that right now.
Oh, wow.
But I think it was just money driven at the time.
Makes sense. So I find it interesting that when you have failed at something, like let's say you failed at a clothing brand, then the club events, which you were trying to build that as well, and then lockdown hit this and that, and all of those things. When you go to another business after failing something, did you have this thing in your head that I'm going to fail this one, or what if I fail this one as well? Because most people have this fear, and that fear comes from ego perspective that if they fail, their friends might think this guy's a loser in life. So did you have that when going into the next business or the SSMA business?
I think you always have there's always a bit of doubt in your brain. But as long as it doesn't dominate, then it doesn't really matter. And I think it's really important to have that, because if not, you're just going to be blindly
What did you do
led.
to help yourself with that kind of that voice in your head, which is always there?
I was very, well, first of all, I always tell myself the same thing that I have always been told in sales. That like, if you screw up on a cold call, you're in the exact same position you were beforehand. You've lost absolutely nothing, but actually gained experience. So 5 minutes ago, you made a call. 5 minutes later, you screwed the call up. You got told no. You may even get hang up on, right? You didn't actually lose anything apart from damage your ego a little bit, but you actually gained an awful lot of experience, and you gained like something that you can change in the next time. And I carry across that exact same thought when it comes to the business. If I, like all the time, I mean, I'm doing things all the time in my business, even right now. We are constantly testing new things that do not work all the time because we're attracting, and you're stabbing in the dark all the time, just hoping that something is going to work and is going to take off, and a percentage of it will. And by rule of large numbers, like the business will grow. And I think that's really important. And I think resilience is the single most important trait of any successful business owner. You have to be able to have rejection, have to be able to be told no and have failure and so on. Because if not, then you're going to be like this glorified child that just expects everything to go their way the whole time and then just give up. And And ultimately, that's where your mindset is. You don't deserve the success that you may or may not get.
I think I really resonate with that of like being resilient, being always okay to go through rejections and failures. But I feel like most people aren't. And that's what stops most people to even trying something out. And so when it comes to the sales job you've had, I think what stops most people to even getting on the phone call, it's the fact that the aftermath of a cold call they have done and they got rejected. When you got your first rejection, you know the feeling you would have from inside is like when you're going on your next phone. Did you have that feeling, or is it just like me when you're going on every phone call you're going, you just have this feeling of like, I'm going on a sales call?
You do. And you have this ball of anxiety in your stomach that manifests in itself. And that's, but I think that it's so important. And actually, I think it comes back to this kind of that age-old quote that everything you've ever wanted, it exists on the other side of your comfort zone. And it's very true. Last week, I spoke on stage for the first time since pre-COVID, and there was like 1,000 business owners. I was absolutely terrified for like 24 hours beforehand. And I had this moment when I said to myself, well, Jordan, like, why are you putting yourself through this? Like, you don't need to do this anymore. You've already got money. You're doing well. Like, you don't. And then I reminded myself that, like, I feel like this because this is uncomfortable. And if I get through this, and I'm going to feel so much better on the other side, but I'm going to feel so much more comfortable with that. And I'll have learned something and I got this new skill. I felt incredible when I came off stage because I'd like pushed myself through that 24. But that 24 hours, I felt absolutely horrific, right? Yep. So what's the solution? If you're not already successful, if you've got anxiety around making cold calls, about doing something within the business, what are you going to do? You're just going to wallow in self-pity and feel sorry for yourself for that this thing is hard, while somebody else goes out there and actually does it and pushes themselves through the pain? Because ultimately, you really have, I think there's a big problem at the moment with people entitled to success, because I think it's so readily available online. The knowledge and information is so readily available online. People like you and I put out videos out there teaching people how they can start companies, right? But we both know 99% of the people that watch our content don't actually start businesses. And I think it's because people get this level of entitlement based on the information they see out there. And they see all these people kind of making it look like it's very, very easy. And so it then brainwashes them into thinking that it actually is. And there's so many influencers out there that are so quick to ram wealth down people's throat. And I think it's a really toxic space right now. So I think people have to understand and have to get used to the fact, again, that success doesn't come easy and there will be pain and it's part of the process and you have to welcome it. You know?
I think from watching your videos, one thing I realized is that you're a person who doesn't like to show the polished version of everything. You like to tell them that there is hard work in every, like even growing a business in the agency space, it's just not something going to happen overnight. So now I want to go to the agency when you started, and I read when I was doing some research about you that you went from in 90 days you got your first 10,000 mark, and that was literally in a space of 3 months. How did you do that?
Yeah, so I scaled the agency to 10k a month in 90 days, and I really just carried across the same principles that I learned in sales. And I say this, and I want to be careful when I say this because I don't want people to believe, okay, well, just discount what I did as, okay, you, Jordan, had previous sales experience. Because the principles I learned in sales are just very, very, very simple. The basic sales principle is that you have to stick to your targets every single day. If you set a target which is realistic that you can stick to every single day, then over consistency over time, you're going to have success, right? But the majority of people can't do that. The majority of people won't. They will set a target and they will just kind of fumble over it, get a few no's and then stop. I just reached out to 20 companies every single day for 3 months. That's all I did. And I'm confident. And in fact, I have products where I guarantee to the fact that people, if they do the same thing, they will get the same result. Because sales is numbers driven. And as long as you're not completely screwing up your calls and you're saying the completely wrong thing, as long as you're following a process that actually works and you're being intelligent, you are going to have success with it. There's an element of luck, but you offset that luck by the consistency that you're having on a daily basis. And when people listen to that, they're like, well, it seems so simple, but then people don't do it. And that's the problem, you know?
And I think in simplicity, there's a term, I can't even get onto my bed, but when something is so simple, that is literally the best way to do something and become successful. And when you were talking about consistency and how you can basically do what is under your control, like doing 20 sales calls a day, I don't know if you heard of Alex Hormozi. Of course. He speaks about like when he was in his darkest time, he said, what can I control? And it was 100 cold calls a day. And he kept on doing it. And he's like, if you do that for 100 years, 100 months, 100 days, you'll be successful in whatever you do.
Of course.
So I think that's a really great one. But when you say the word guaranteed, when you said, and you also provide that in your training courses, how do you guarantee that? Is it based on them actually applying like a step-by-step guide which you have put in that, or is it something you know which no one knows? Which is that?
No, there's nothing, and I think this is the same for a lot of education. Like, there's nothing that I know. There's no secret, no hack that I know that nobody else in my industry understands. I understand that what truly makes an agency owner successful is the ability to, number one, have a lot of support, and number two, have somebody hold them accountable to their targets. Because most people are incapable, to be frank, of sticking to them daily targets because they haven't had that conditioning. And I went through a lot of pain in sales for me to have that conditioning. I had to get out of that debt and so on. And so I had a bit of an unfair advantage there, but I can kind of instill that into other people. So there's no special kind of hack that I give these people, but we just make sure that they stick to their targets, and then we actually assign a coach to people that checks in every single day, looks at their tracker sheet saying, hang on a second, you didn't make it 20 cold calls yesterday. What's happening? Oh, well, I had this objection and this has gone wrong. Okay, let me listen to your call. Let me help you out with that. Let me give you the guidance that you need over that period. So it's really just hand-holding and making sure that people would stick to their targets, and also ensuring that they're not replicating me, because I think a lot of people try and copy other people in business, especially in our space. Like, they're like, okay, someone's got a successful Amazon FBA product, right? They've got a successful product. I'm going to take the exact same product and put a different logo on it. I'm going to change the color and I'll put a different bundle with it and change the title slightly, and hopefully I'll get the same results. Now, in some cases, you can actually get some decent results, but most people will not replicate it to the standard that it needs to be. So they'll half-arse it and they'll miss one little detail that person knows. And it's exactly the same with any business, really. And so when I give someone a sales script, I'm not giving them something word to word that they can just follow. I make it very abundantly clear that these are the things that you need to change. This is the reasons why you're saying the things you're saying. You are not me. You do not speak in the same tone as me. You are you. So we need to find a way for this to work for you, you know?
And basically finding their unfair advantages. Just I don't know. Have you read the book called Unfair Advantages?
I haven't, no, but I'm very familiar with.
Oh, you are familiar? Yes, it's a great book, and it really speaks about how you can find your own unfair advantages and use it for your benefit, just like you used yours. Your sales was your unfair advantage, which is great. Now, when you scaled your company from 0 to 10K, after that, how long did it take you to grow to the 100K mark?
It was roughly within the next 2 years. I started the business at 24 years old, but then I'd already turned over $1 million by 25.
Okay.
So within the next 12 months, we would have hit 100K on a monthly basis. I don't know the exact.
Going from 0 to 1 million by 25, that hooked me up. What does one have to do or become to scale a company from 0 to 7 figures?
I think that you have to become I think that there's a really big element of selfishness that comes into starting a business and scaling it very aggressively when you're young, and I think that a lot of people who try and get into this space think that they can still keep a lot of balance within their life in those initial stages. I have a lot of balance in my life now. It's something I pride myself on, and I invest a lot into kind of all areas of my life. But when I first started the business, I had no balance. It was shit to the wall, all in business, 5 a.m. wake ups, just spending absolutely all my time. I got rid of a relationship that I was in at that time, a perfectly functioning relationship, but it just didn't serve the business at all. I stopped going out all the time, and I just really focused on just grafting and working very, very hard. And I lost a lot of friendships and so on and so forth. I maintained the ones that actually mattered, but I was very selfish in that time. I think that you can achieve it in a longer period with a little bit more balance in your life, but it wasn't an option for me. I had to. Do you regret
focusing all on business and not those relationships with your friends or even the person you had in your life?
No, absolutely not. I don't regret any of it. Because the people that stuck around, it was an awesome opportunity for me to weed out the people that didn't actually matter. Because the people that stuck around are the people that knew my whole life that I was going to do this anyway. Because it's not the shock to these people that's like, oh wow, Jordan all of a sudden changed his whole life. Like, I would spend every weekend speaking to these people saying that one day I'm going to start a business. If they didn't listen to me or take me seriously, that's their problem. I was going to do it eventually anyway. So and the people that really mattered did support me. So yeah, and I think it's actually almost essential at the start. And
I really agree with that, because most people are always trying to look for that work-life balance. But in the start, I don't think that is going to be a matter. You have to sacrifice something in order for you to gain something.
I agree. I think that work-life balancing is just. I think that whole term is actually it's such a frustrating term to me. And I think there's something that people use and say to people that are insecure about their own kind of work. Because for me, there is no work-life balance, because work is my life and my life is my work, and it's not work. And I really don't like that term work. Yeah. You know, like if you do something that you truly love and you're truly passionate about, then you want to wake up and you want to do it as much as you possibly can. And you would only impose that balance on people if you felt like you didn't enjoy whatever your work was, you know. So it's quite a.
And technically, when you love what you're doing, you're already retired, so you're not even looking for a retire anytime soon.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, unless you want to move on to like something else and jump around, and
yeah, that's interesting. So hitting $1 million at an early age, like 25, I say as an early age because my goal is to hit that $1 million status by 25, and probably will hit it next year sometime. I saw one of your videos and you mentioned that it wasn't as fulfilling as you wished it was. Why was that?
I think you put money on this pedestal of you. I think we, just as human beings, just capitalism full stop. We're just brainwashed into believing that money is like ultimate happiness, and don't get me wrong. I'm not one of these people that says money doesn't bring you happiness at all, because I do believe it does. And I think money makes life a lot easier. And I think money makes the things that you already have around you. It gives you a new perspective on everything that you already have. I think you can appreciate the very, very, very simple things you have right in front of you even more when you have money. And when you don't have money, you're blinded. So you can't even see the things that are right in front of you. So you kind of have to come full circle yourself. Making $1 million was the same as making 10K a month. It was like I set that goal at 10K a month, and it's like I was like, wow, 10K a month, that'll be incredible. Like I can't even imagine making 10K a month. Got 10K a month, and you're like, okay, now I got 10K a month. I don't actually feel that wealthy. Like I can do a few extra holidays a year or whatever. What's next? And so then I hit the $1 million, and it was really just a number at that point, because I'd already had a reasonable amount of money. I wasn't exactly frugal at the start of the business. I didn't really practice delayed gratification because of the area that I was in Norwich in Norfolk. I wasn't surrounded by wealth at all. Like it's not a wealthy area at all. It's not like growing up in London where you see supercars and stuff. Like you maybe see like one supercar a year when you're in. So for me, it was like you want those things even more because you don't see them, and you almost want to prove your point to the area that you're doing really well. So I bought a BMW M4 within like 6 months of starting the business. So it really kind of threw that rule book out the window, which I don't regret. But so at that point, because I'd already almost enjoyed the money a little bit, it didn't feel like anything, and it felt like, well, what is next? What is the next purpose? And I think the blessing that came out of that is I stopped seeking fulfillment through money, and I started looking at the reasons why I was running the business in the first place and what my actual purpose was.
I was actually going to get to the question of like, what did you change to become more fulfilled and keep going? And I think purpose is a really, really good way. And one thing related to purpose, which I kind of, when I was doing your research, I found is that you started becoming more spiritual and going into the route of manifestation and finding out more about yourself and everything. Did that help you in the sense of becoming more purposeful, but in the sense that it helped you to grow your company to even more while feeling more?
Yeah, I think that self-awareness is something that's incredibly important. And I think that so many of us live our lives unknowingly based on the figures that we have followed throughout our entire lives. So the people that we have followed and people that we idolize and people in our industry that are further ahead than us. And we actually, so many of us don't actually understand who we truly are and what we truly want until we actually have the things that we tell ourselves we want. And then we're kind of stood at this crossroads like, okay, now I've got those things and I still don't feel like whole. Yeah. And so once I actually got, for me, like just, I wanted a nice house and I wanted a nice car and I wanted a nice watch and I wanted nice things, and because I thought materialism was the thing. And then I got all of those things and I was kind of stood there like, well, what is next? Where am I going to be? Who am I going to be? What do I actually want from my life? Like, what actually makes me happy? And I realized very, very simple things around me, like being connected to nature and spending a lot of time in my own company within nature. Absolutely love it. Having fulfilling relationships, but a small amount of fulfilling relationships with people that I actually care about. Traveling and things that I always had the opportunity to actually do and experience new cultures and actually help people and really invest time into helping people. And not just help people in the sense that when I started the business, I was helping people as kind of like it was a part of the business. Because it made me money, but actually really diving deep into understanding other people and understanding the way their mind works and truly having a psychological impact on those people, and all of those things that I could do anyway. I just didn't have the ability to look at them in the same way because I was blinded by these shutters of materialism, money, and so on and so forth. And don't get me wrong, I still want to earn an incredible amount of money, but now just as a vehicle to unlock the next tier of purpose and fulfillment, you know?
Yeah. I think that's a really nice way to put it, because most people always have this question that, if it's for your purpose or fulfillment, you already have the money, why do you want to go for more money? But I think more money allows you to expand your impact on how many people you can impact on and change their lives as well.
Yeah.
So I think that was really well. After you hit your million and you went into this journey of finding purpose and fulfillment, was it books that helped you, or was it people that helped you to?
Honestly, it was my own company. Like, so I've done a few trips now over the last 3 years where I will just book somewhere on my own and spend time in my own company. I went to Iceland and I booked this house on top of a mountain. And it was like literally you're 40 minutes away from a drive from the nearest village. There's nobody there at all. And I'd never heard silence like it in my entire life, completely remote on my own. And it was just liberating. I hiked up this mountain. I drank water from this running stream. And it was just the most incredible experience. And I think when you force yourself to be away from technology, away from your business, in your own company, in your own thoughts, it enables you to kind of bring up all the demons or insecurities and doubts that you have about yourself inside, and allows you to really spend time by yourself. Because a lot of people in those situations, I think a lot of people really struggle with their own company. I don't think there's too many people that can really hold their hands up and say, I adore spending time with myself on my own, and not stimulated by sitting playing a game or doing something like that. Like actually just being on your own, doing something very simple and primal, like going out for a walk or something like that. So it was those moments that I really found I learned a lot about myself, and I made the most kind of self-development, because you're having that constant internal dialogue.
I think I can really resonate with that, because when I'm in nature, it just energizes me and helps me to kind of look at my business from a different lens as well. And the thing you said about spending time with yourself, there's a great study which states that men would rather get electric shocked than spend 15 minutes with their own thoughts. So it was like 50, I think around a good number of men would actually choose to get electric shocked.
It's incredible.
Rather than just staying with their own thoughts.
It's crazy.
So that was something interesting there as well. Now I want to go to the SMMA and kind of your journey after the million. Was the million including your training company as well?
Yes. That was overall.
And I want to stay on this training kind of industry for a bit, because I personally have this mentoring thing I do for Amazon FBA. How did you differentiate yourself from what there was right back in the days, that Lopez and everything who were there as well, who made that industry look such scammy? How did you differentiate yourself?
I think it's really tricky, doing these. In the last 2-3 months, the first time that I've even done podcasts or collaborations of any sort, I always avoided any kind of collaboration with anybody else in the space, because from day one, I really have not liked the online education industry, because there are so many poor quality products. Yep. The industry is desperate for regulation, absolutely desperate. There are so many people that sell courses on doing something that they've never even achieved themselves. Yep. I really believe that I'm one of maybe 2 or 3 people in the whole agency space that actually own an agency, and even the people that I mentioned that do have an agency that works with agencies. like an actual practicing agency. Everyone else conveniently folded it or sold it without any kind of proof, and hey ho. So I think that like initially what was really important for me is from day one I really wanted to go down a different route and make sure that we were certified and we followed like an actual educational board. So there's a company called the CPD, and they regulate educational products, online courses and so on. And they do this for universities and courses and so on. And we followed their standard when we were creating our course, where you have to have learning objectives and action points and summaries. And there's so much like extra kind of educational content that we need to add to just increase the quality of the course. So we did that and we got certified by them. A year into launching, we launched the first ever guarantee in the agency space where we would guarantee people they'd sign up a client within a certain period of time. Now every single course out there has a guarantee, which is kind of crazy. It's actually a real double-edged sword because the guarantees are absurd. There are people promising the most obscene things that like they can't possibly ever fulfill on. And then you look at the terms of the guarantee and it's you need to be doing the job of 10 different people, but yet you've just invested $2,000 into a course. So it's a battle. It's a battle. And I try and keep myself away from the industry itself as much as possible and stay in my lane. And as long as I'm doing a good job, then I know my conscience is clean.
Interesting. When you did release your training program, you were still not too much into, or even after releasing your training program, you were not there just harshly promoting it. Yet you managed to get a sales. Was your main driver to the course from YouTube or?
It's from YouTube, but my sales mechanism. So we've always been organic, but the thing that sells the academy and to the hindrance of our own revenue, we could make us so much more revenue in the education product if we went down the route of everybody else. But the thing that's always sold the academy is the success of our own agency. People look at the success of the agency, they want to know the systems that we've got, and hence they buy the academy. And that's the way it's always been. We've never had to sell based on necessarily lifestyle or sell based on really bold claims and bold offers. And of course, we do have just a caveat, a little bit of lifestyle content on YouTube, but you're not going to see me sitting in front of it.
I think it's part of the brand. You have to.
Yeah, I've got a £180,000 car. I never sit on top of it to record an ad. Like I don't use that shit to make sales, right?
I think right now you really, really got me to ask this question, which is there. What's your opinion on Iman Gadzhi? And I feel like whatever you just said describes what he shows and everything really well.
I think Iman is a complex character. I've been for dinner with Iman. I even had beef with Iman once on YouTube, and I have a lot of respect for Iman. I think he's done. Over the last, I think Iman has gone from a boy to a man since starting his business. And I think that he's done an incredible job getting it to where he is today. He's pushing some obscene financial figures at the moment, which I can only take my hat off to. And respect. I think his marketing strategy is quite applaudable at the moment. He's following a very Andrew Tate.
Do you think it's applaudable? Because are you aware of like how it really works? And
well, I tell you what, I think it's applaudable in the strategy, but if we strip it back to the ethics of it, we are talking about brainwashing teenagers,
exactly,
right?
Yes.
And that's what we're literally. That's so from a business. There's that constant kind of battle between kind of ethics and business, and then like, okay, is something like a smart business decision. From the strategy, the actual framework of the strategy that he's following, it's fantastic. Yeah. But we are talking about brainwashing teenagers on like a global scale and fear mongering on a humongous scale, and
it's basically taking the level of urgency and scarcity to the most utmost level you can ever take it to. And I think one thing which I see the biggest difference when I look at other people in the SSMA and you is that you really care about the work ethics. Like what you're doing should feel right within you, only then you're doing that.
I think the difficult thing is with people like Iman and others is that at some point they decided that money meant more than true impact and actually helping people. Because at some point, these guys decided, I don't need to care about telling people that this is actually going to take work anymore. I really can just go full hog. I think the difficult thing is in education, and this is not just talking about Iman, but if the shoe fits, we're talking and we're selling to lots of people that are actually very vulnerable in many situations, extremely vulnerable people. And in many cases, actually, it's their last lifeline.
Yes.
They desperately want to be successful. And here is this guy on the internet who's got 10 Patek Philippe's and gets any girl he wants and travels the world and is ramming that down your throat, who is saying to you, give me $1,000 and I'm going to make you me.
Yeah.
Those people are never, ever in their wildest dreams going to be him.
Yep.
Maybe 0.001% because of the framework of just the whole business. But they are led to believe that they will be. And I think that's really, it's a very difficult position.
I think I really understand the perspective you're coming from. And it's mainly the lifestyle which kind of gets people to get into that. And as much as I want to share lifestyle related videos and everything, if you go see my stuff, I just can't be asked and bothered to show this lifestyle stuff and everything. But at the same time, I people listening to this right now are mainly into SMMA and everything. So I just want to ask this question of like, what's it really like starting SMMA? Is it, how much time do you need to put in, and how fast you can see your first client in today's timeline?
It's in this day and age, starting an SMMA right now, it's a competitive industry. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But it's also still incredibly viable as a business option. And the reason why I think social media marketing is such a great opportunity for so many people is the low barrier to entry that it has and the minimum investment requirement. I think what's incredibly important is I think SMMA has taken this really kind of big turn over the last 12 months when everyone started off in local lead gen and then everybody got tainted by e-commerce, including myself. I have an e-commerce agency. Honestly, anybody listening to this who hasn't started an agency yet, never start an e-commerce agency. It's the most stressful agency that you could ever run.
What's an e-commerce agency?
You're working with e-commerce brands.
Okay.
So we run ads for various e-commerce brands. We spend upwards of 40k a day on ads across platforms. We've generated 56 million for e-commerce.
I wanted to come to that as well. Returning 56 million pounds.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah. $56 million.
And within your agency, you can cut me off after that. Within your agency, do you have this split revenue or like profit model where you work for free and then you only take the percentage?
It depends on the client. So some clients we have fixed retainer. With 90% of them, we have some kind of commission-based deal. So we'll take either a percentage of return on ad spend or a percentage of ad spend.
How do you know which one to offer a client?
It depends on their profit margins and depends on what they're actually more open to. Now, we used to have all clients mandatory percentage of return on ad spend. I actually think that would be the best model for all agencies to take. The problem with that is 90% of other agencies don't actually offer it. So if you have a percentage of return on ad spend, you're obviously incentivized for the money that you're making your clients. The majority of agencies charge a percentage of the ad spend itself, which actually means they're incentivized for the spend, right? Which is actually not relative to how much money the client is making at all. In some cases, it can be really a real negative thing. The reason why percentage return on ad spend isn't working so much now is because everybody else is doing the ad spend thing, and it's always ends up being cheaper. So in an ideal world, if all agencies went down a percentage return on ad spend, that would be great because everyone's incentivized for the same thing. Client results will go up, but everyone will be more happy, right? But because the majority of agencies do the percentage ad spend thing, then that can't be the case. So we've actually moved over to that kind of with newer, larger clients because if not, we'll just continue losing clients to other agencies that undercut. And I think that's the danger of an agency is in the e-commerce space, at least, we're kind of commoditized and it's all about the money and so on because there's lots of people that can get good results and we're very limited by the offer that we can put out and you can't really guarantee anything spectacular other than to increase their current return on ad spend and so on and so forth. Whereas in the lead generation space, which I would advise all new agency owners to start off in, you can create some really great, profound offers for a specific niche that separate you from all your competition.
And what do you say in terms of that, or just running a social media marketing agency? What would be the hard side or the tough things which no one really shares about? In starting an agency? Running and starting an agency. When starting and then running an agency.
Yeah, I think I think one of the fundamental mistakes that I think that all agents, no matter how many times you tell people, all make this mistake because you're motivated by money when you first start out, is signing up clients that aren't actually suitable for your agency, not being able to get them results, and then actually struggling to recover from that as far as your confidence is concerned. Because confidence in your ability to deliver service is incredibly important. And that's what it's really going to make you more confident in your sales calls. You're going to have more conviction. You're going to build more trust, and your conversion rate is going to skyrocket. But when you get your first client that you can't actually get results for, and it does happen, it happens all the time. It happens to us almost every single month. You get some clients that you just can't get results for. There are way too many variables in marketing for you to guarantee results every single time. And when you have that for the first time, it's something that's really hard for people to recover for, especially if it's their first client. You're really unlucky if your first ever client you can't get results for, because then you kind of have to convince yourself again that the service is good and that you can do it and so on. So I think a lot of agency owners are at the danger of that.
Makes sense. And have you heard of another type of model in agency is you work with influencers and then you help them run a training? Because in the start of 2020, or not 2020, 2021, I worked with an agency who helped me kind of start this training thing and helped me get the criteria, do the sales and everything for that. And I think they've been running that for just a year or so, and they have kind of returned over 5 million already to the influencers, like in total revenue and stuff like that. Have you heard of that? Because I get emails every single day from these type of agencies. So
actually facilitating like them creating a course product?
Yes, course product and everything.
I have seen that, yeah. And I mean, I think it's a great business model. I think there's a lot of potential in it. I think that there's something I'm in a couple of masterminds, one of which is Sam Ovens, and something that Sam talks about an awful lot at the moment is how much the influencer space is going to cross over with the education space, which is going to just be so cancerous, to be honest. But a lot of people will make a lot of money, and I think a prime example of that would be what's going on with Iman at the moment, right? He's moving into that influencer space, like he's the Jake Paul of the
who was that?
Iman, sorry.
Oh yes.
So going back to that, yes. So using that as an example, like Iman really is like the Jake Paul or the Andrew Tate of the education space, yes. Right? And so what we're seeing right in front of us is a prime example of how much money can be made with that combination of influencer and education. And I think a lot of people are going to see that who have already got the Iman status of influence, but not the course. Yeah. And they're just going to introduce a course product and so on. That's going to flood an incredibly large amount of low quality products into the industry. What will happen, I don't know. But then again, you do see people. I think Jake Paul or someone tried to create an education product a couple of years, but it was a bag of shit. So
it was the worst product out there. I think it was related to YouTube or something, like how to grow on YouTube, something along those, or 10K or something along those lines. That's the reason. And one question I wanted to ask in regarding to big people like Jake Paul, Iman, and everyone is that, do you think they feel fulfilled at the level they go to? Because most people see from here and be like, oh my lord, this guy's making so much money. But making that much money in terms of the ethics they go through, they use, do you think that's a fulfilling route to take?
It wouldn't be for me. But it's hard. It's very, very hard to say. I think that you get to a certain point. I don't think you can do what you're doing at that point if you have the ability to even think about it. I don't think these people go to bed at night and they think, okay. I think they convince themselves that they are doing really good and they are making a really big impact. And I think that's the only way they actually can do it. So I don't believe that it is a problem for them, and I think they probably do feel somewhat. I think they were probably chasing nothingness. I think there's absolutely. I think you get to a certain level and then you chase something else. But I'm not here to say that none of those people are going to be happy within their lives, because I'm sure they absolutely will. But I think that journey will be a struggle, as anyone's journey is. But I don't believe that they are aware of the ethics within the business, because I think they've convinced themselves and have had enough team members in their company validating that their shit is good, that. Because everybody, and there's enough people making enough money from it, they're all kind of on this party of, we are helping the world, you know? So I don't think and anybody that would speak otherwise to them, they would just
get rid of
bat away and say, no, you're talking shit, you know? So it's in this bubble of ignorance in a way.
And I think You know how in the self-improvement space where it says, don't surround yourself with people who are always saying negative or saying dumb stuff. So it's so weird how everything clashes with each other. Like when you, like, for example, if I was Iman and if someone around me is just being negative, but they're being true, and you're like, oh no, this person's being negative around me, so let me get rid of that person. I'm just thinking on the lens of like how self-improvement and sometimes you being so ignorant can be really bad.
I agree. I think the whole self-improvement industry at the moment, especially the young male in self, it's fucking
alpha.
Oh man, it's fucking childish. It's like I'm watching this. Sometimes I see these videos come up and I'm like, fuck me, when is everyone going to grow up? It's like made for these young kids, and it's really dangerous. I actually think it's really dangerous. I think there's some serious toxic self-development movements at the moment, especially in the male space. And I think it's just like, and I think what we're doing is we're just feeding off kind of other opposing movements that are coming around just for the sake of it. And I think that everybody's looking for something to lean into. And I just think, I think it's a very childish space, the YouTube self-development. Not all of it, but especially that kind of young space. And it's strange.
And the problem is that they're taking advantage of something like, for example, the Matrix, they call it, which is understandable, but they're using that just to funnel them into their courses. So people don't look at that perspective as well. And so,
I mean, call it whatever you want. I mean, I'm not one to say that the world is a perfect place, and of course, I believe that there are so many. We do live in somewhat of a matrix or whatever, a facade. We are brainwashed to live our lives in a certain way because it feeds into the machine, right? Yeah. And that is absolutely true. But I think that in the way that people talk about it, like they're on the inside and they understand, and you have Andrew Tate acting like he's getting killed and all this fucking bullshit, and everybody else is like, man, like he knows the thing, and someone's cancelling, and oh my god, they removed his YouTube video because he said this. And I just think it's people just look for something to be hysterical over, and I think that they're almost like cheat codes in business. You know, when you feed into there's these certain topics and genres and trends, and when you feed into them, you're going to make money. But they're like these little cheat codes, and you kind of every time you kind of chipping away at your moral compass or your actual status. Like it's for the people that actually see it for what it is. You know, they're like those little things where you can feed into because the majority of people want something to be hysterical about. And that's why I never go down those routes. You know, I just watch it and observe and like, okay, look at that.
That's why, because I've seen the SMMA space grow. I've never tried it myself, but I've seen it grow since like early 2020 or even 2019 or even before then when the Lopez and everyone came. And that's why when I first was I started researching about you. I'm like, interesting man. He has an agency, he has a training program, but he still haven't gone into this route of trying to brainwash people by using something or getting on the trend or getting on the hype to try and sell something.
You know, I found myself like recently, like in the last couple of months, I recorded 2 recession videos on YouTube. And in my gut, when I was recording them, I was like, this does not feel right. This doesn't feel like me. And I did it because everyone else was doing it. And I kind of checked in with myself and I was like, why am I recording this video? I'm like, oh, the recession is coming and it's going to do this to you. And then what are you going to do? Are you going to have to start an agency? And I was like, wow, what the fucking bullshit are you talking about right now? Like, this is not you. Like, what are you doing? And I would rather limit my revenue and actually uphold myself as a good person, as have good ethics, and actually care about people and not have to make them feel insecure and have doubts and fear their lives for them to buy my course, because my course is fucking good. My product is fucking good. I don't need to brainwash you into actually buying it, you know? And I think we're all at danger a little bit being in that space. Is why I try not to consume too much content myself, because you end up falling into it yourself. You know, you end up falling down that rabbit hole, and then you can lose what made your brand great and what made you resonate with people in the first place.
That's really true. And I think in the long term, being just you helps a lot, especially when building a personal brand as well. And I think when I started my journey, I was me. In the middle, I started being someone else, but now I'm going back to being me. And so I'm learning this kind of thing. But I think your journey has inspired me to just be you. Don't try and bullshit anything. And I think it's just the way you felt sometimes recording a video about a certain topic. You're like, is this really something I give a flip about?
Yeah.
I probably don't.
Why?
Why am I even making this?
Yeah. Why am I making this video? And I think it's really important. I think it's a journey. It's something that will always change. Like you can't sit and say that you'll never be in that position again. I can't say that I'm always going to put out something which is completely authentic to myself. But as long as you're making that conscious effort and it's in the back of your mind and
being aware of it is important.
You don't make a deal with the devil, then that's
a nice way to put it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to go to your kind of, so from 0 to 10, you can do it all yourself. I guess even from 0 to 100, maybe you can do it for yourself.
Well, as a one-man band?
How?
No, I would say maybe like 5 to 10K you're going to want to get your first person in if you want to for it to be relatively stress-free.
So when you scaled your company just for SMMA, how many people did you have by the time you reached your 0 to 100? And how did you deal with the stress? How did you learn managing people? Because managing people is a whole different level as well. What was the things you kind of placed in your business to help it scale? Because that's where people kind of make the biggest mistakes. They're not able to systemize stuff. So how did you kind of coming new into SMMA and then just without any experience?
I was always told, and I've forgotten what book I read it in, that you should hire when you feel pain, and not just like a little bit of pain, but like a lot of pain. And in the sense that, so when I first started working with clients and I was fulfilling services, because I'd like conditioned myself that sales is the only thing. There's this term, always make sure you have a warm, bubbling pool of leads. And I remember once in sales in a job, I didn't have a warm, bubbling pool of leads, people in the pipeline ready to buy. And I put all my eggs in this one basket and it fell through. And I remember my boss being like, I told you, like you should have had like your pipeline full. And that always sticks with me. So when my pipeline slips, and I was just fulfilling services, I knew that I really needed to get somebody that would help me out. So I actually hired a VA that fulfilled some services for me on Upwork.com, and they were based in Bulgaria, so in a more developing country. So you could actually pay good money in that country, but it cost
cheaper,
less here. And that's what I did. So I really just hired when I felt pain, and I would recommend all agency owners doing that. I think a lot of people hire way too soon, because they're trying to create passive income. And an agency business is not a passive business at all. It can be when you've worked your ass off for a couple of years at least, and then built a great team. But even then, you're going to struggle to keep them motivated if you're going on holiday every month and they're working to line your pockets.
I think how do you kind of look in that sense, incentivizing them and keeping motivated? Because I think in that industry, when it's getting clients and then you figure out, I can get the clients myself and I can do this all myself. How did you kind of get that through? I
think culture is really important. I think it's really important to give people future. When we take on employees and team members, we always set out the future for them. And that's the benefit of being a small company, is that when you hire that first media buyer, for example, like that person is the person who's going to end up heading up your media buying team. They're going to be your CMO if they're the right person. And that person needs to know that from day one. Like, look, there's two of us right now. This company, I want to scale it to X point. And to do that, we're going to need an A-player team. You could be this person. You're going to come in at this role. So you're setting that future anyway. So they're not looking for what's next. There's a term, and I'll screw it up because I don't know it word for word, but it's something like employees run out of motivation when they run out of future. And so when they run out of something to be working towards, that's when they lose their motivation. And so it's very important to have that from day one.
I really like that. And when you say you kind of help them see the future, what are the things you kind of look at? So
we're looking at, first of all, progression opportunity. And also it's very important to be completely transparent with your team members on the growth of your company. Like, what are you working on, and where are you working towards, and what do the financial figures look like? So they can actually have like a very transparent understanding of what is going on.
I really resonate with that. I think, yes, that's the importance of just sharing everything you do is really important to growing a company. This is a burning question, which was within me. I just remembered as well. What would be the highest amount of paid client you can get in like SMMA? In the I would say in the range when you're just getting started in the
How much will one client pay you?
Yes.
The biggest invoice I've had paid was $50,000 for 1 month for one client.
For 1 month.
Yeah.
That wasn't recurring?
That was it was recurring, but it was a commission-based deal, so that was the biggest we got.
Oh wow!
The caveat to that is 2 months later, the client left us
Okay.
because they were probably they wanted to bring everything in house, and they were like, "Wow, we're paying this agency too much." And there's a lesson there, and we now have a cap with.
I think that itself is that one thing I was always thinking, that clients, when they find out I can do this myself with a cheaper, how do you kind of not let that happen?
I think that there's only so much you can do to combat it. I think it's a natural cycle of any agency client. I think you have to accept as an agency owner, you are never going to keep clients forever. There are a few clients. Like I've got clients. I haven't got any of the original clients we signed within the first couple of months, but I have one that was within the first year, and she's still with us today. And she has no desire to scale her company to this massive level. We maintain it to a reasonable figure for her, and we're still working together. It's kind of an outlying situation though. The majority of businesses you work with want to scale up as much as possible when you hit a certain level of scale, and they're spending, I find, around £10,000 a month. Then they really start considering, okay, could I hire in-house? It's when you're doing 15, 20K, then they're definitely going to do it. And it's something that you can either try and convince them to not do, which really never really works, because if they've got it in their head, they're going to do it anyway. And so instead, it's actually better to just facilitate it for them. And so we would do like a coaching day where we'll just do like 2 days, or maybe we'll do like a call over the course of a month where we train up their in-house team. And instead we just have this phase where we can make a bit of money from them. We might charge 10K for that, for example. And then we're facilitating it, and at least then we're not burning the bridge, and they can come back to us if they need us in the future. Yeah. So I think you can't avoid it.
That's a really smart way to do that as well. What would be 3 skills a person need if they want to start a social media marketing agency?
So there's 3 things that you would need. Not necessarily skills, but just traits would be resilience is incredibly important, as I mentioned earlier, consistency, and
what about knowing after that?
What
should you know?
Well, you need to know the 3 fundamentals are really the niche that you're going to be reaching out to. So the first of all, the industry that you're going to be reaching out to, and you don't want to overthink this. It's really any business to consumer company that can take leads. Ideally, a product or service based business, local to you, and then you're going to need a sales mechanism of some sort, an outreach mechanism. I would recommend cold calling for the majority of people. Like that's super intimidating for most people, but that's why you should do it, because cold calling is like practice for a meeting. If you can't cold call like at all, and you really can't even bring yourself to picking up the phone, what are you going to do when someone emails and say, hey, I'm going to have a meeting with you? You're going to be shit in your pants out on that Zoom call, and you're going to screw it up because it's going to be the first time you've ever spoken to someone in a business setting. So if anything, them cold calls are just practice for you when you actually get on the meeting, and they are just the most efficient way. And so off the back of that, you're going to need a script and so on. And then you just need your service. So it's really, you need to know, who am I reaching out to? How am I going to do it? And then what am I actually going to do for them?
And in terms of learning ads, I would say, should you focus on just learning one type of ad, like one type as in just Facebook ads, Google ads, like or you should learn all at once?
No, I would definitely stick to one thing. I would do one thing and do it really well. I wouldn't be even considering doing other services until you hit 10K.
How did you learn? Which one did you start with?
Facebook ads. It's still our core service.
Oh, okay. How did you learn Facebook ads?
So again, I wouldn't recommend other people doing what I did, but I signed up my first client, which was a restaurant, and I didn't know how to run Facebook ads. And so I actually learned on the job. And so I was like, there was this Richard Branson quotes, like, if you ever got offered an opportunity, say yes.
Take it, yes.
Yeah, and then learn later. Exactly. So I signed up the client, and then I was like, wow, I need to be this person that I'm pretending I am now. And so I watched loads of YouTube videos and so on, and I managed to pull it off within a month, basically. And I tested it out with them. What I would recommend to majority of people, depending on what budget you have, there are lots of different training courses out there. On YouTube, you'll be so surprised at how much you can learn. You can definitely learn the foundational knowledge on YouTube. In fact, actually, shooting myself in the foot because we have a program, but you could go over to YouTube and you could learn anything you needed to learn to get results on Facebook and Google. It's only the information. The funny thing about YouTube is the information is all there. but you convince yourselves that something's missing just because it's on YouTube. But if you go for the small creators, the little guys that are trying to make an impact, they're the ones that are putting out the
most value.
Yeah.
And also there's a saying that you can find everything on the internet, but it just requires a lot of time. And the people who do provide training or courses, they can just cut out all that time and put it all in one place.
Yeah. It's the support in training programs that I think is the most valuable thing. It's having that support network. But what I did when I first learned, like the way I learned social media marketing is I basically wrote the format of an online course in my notes, all the things that I didn't know. So I was like, okay, I need to know what ideal scripts there are and what this is and what service I should offer and so on. I just Googled those things and I just ticked it off. So I basically compiled my own online course when I first started out, just from information that I found online. So
that's incredible. Starting from there and then just and now you're probably going to be. I mean, you're probably already hitting multi-million kind of.
Yeah, we do. Just the agency specifically, we fluctuate from 100 to 150k
a month, and that's profit or revenue.
Profit is about 65%, give or take.
Okay, that's still incredible compared to, like, let's say, an e-commerce, like I would say even drop shipping or Amazon FBA.
Yeah.
You're looking at more like 30, 35.
Yeah.
So compared to that, that's why one thing is that in the future, one type of business I'll really look into once I've settled and build something, which I'm building right now, is in a service-based business. Because I think, one, profit margins are great, and two, it is a lot less hassle compared to you putting your product onto a website, which they can ban you on insanely quick.
Profit margins do like they vary. Like when you're first starting out, you're on like 90% profit margins,
and then when you hire,
60% is really the lowest that you would end up being in if you're running it like optimal. At the minute, you go through just your profit margins are like a caterpillar in the agency. So like at the moment we've just made loads of hires in November, so that's why profit margins are around 60. They will stretch out to around 80% again once we hit. So you hire for capacity so you can take on more clients, but then your profit margins dip. But then when you hit that capacity, when you get all those new clients, and obviously you're laughing.
How many employees does your company have?
We only have 10 full-time employees.
10 full-time employees. Yeah. That's still a big number for just, I guess. Oh no, actually, compared to how much you're doing, it doesn't sound a lot. But then that also kind of gives what you can achieve with such a small team in terms of.
I mean, we had our first 100k month, 4 employees.
Oh, wow. Yeah. What type of 4 employees do you need in that mainly?
So you're looking at it depends on what your skill set is, because in an agency you either need to be the salesperson or you need to be the service delivery person. Now, for a typical agency, you would have, let's say, yourself, and let's say typically you do sales, and then you would have someone in service delivery. You would need someone doing outreach for you as well. And then you want to have that person doing outreach can also do lead generation. And then we probably had somebody else complementary in service. But my setup is slightly different because I actually have a business partner in the agency who is one of my successful students from the course. Okay. And we kind of got like a year or two into the course. He scaled his agency to over 10k a month. And I was also investing a lot of time, splitting my time between the academy and the agency. And I wanted to bring someone on in the agency who could take over the agency for me. So I could really just be an advisor to the agency, but someone could action everything and really be clever and get everything moving. So I bought his agency out, and then we merged. And so now Joe, my business partner, basically manages the agency, and he really runs 90% of the operations.
So in a way, that's when this is the level you can get when you kind of semi-passive. It's more like you can do other stuff.
The agency is as passive as it could possibly be for me. Okay. Yeah, I jump on a couple of calls a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really nice to have. I mean, this was a really insightful and realistic podcast into the SMMA world. Just one thing is, as you mentioned, I don't believe there is such thing as saturation, but there is more competition compared to back in the days. Do you think that competition will keep increasing in terms of like people putting these courses out, which is creating scarcity? Or do you think there will just be people who will get on those courses, but then they will give up, and then there will always be a piece of cake for everyone to eat?
I think that the market, rather than being more saturated, is just getting more sophisticated. So I think that when I first started, nobody really knew about Facebook ads. And so when I would sign up clients, I was like selling them a new opportunity. Well, it's not a new opportunity for them anymore. They know what Facebook ads are, and they've heard of agencies before. They've pitched them loads of times. So it's now about how we differentiate ourselves. I think that yes, with lots of people having courses and people starting agencies, I think yes, it could be a problem. But I think the reality is that 99% of people that want to start an agency or even think about it don't actually even make it past one client. So they just don't, because the majority of people like the idea of being successful more than they like working for it.
I think one question would be right now is, when you reach out to a new client, how would you differentiate now? Because there are probably 10 other people who have reached out to them as well.
I think it's really important to, as quickly as you possibly can, get enough confidence in your service to be able to offer a guarantee of some sort, and have a very specific kind of quantifiable result on that. For example, if you work with chiropractors, which isn't a niche that I would necessarily recommend because it's probably been hit a lot, but chiropractors, let's say you were reaching out to them and you were to say, I can help you get 20 new customers this month, or you pay me nothing. You know, I can help you get 20 new patients this month, or you pay me.
It's
nothing.
A no-brainer for them.
It's a bit of a no-brainer, and that kind of could evolve to even a financial figure. Once you've worked with enough companies in one specific niche, you'll know what kind of financial result you can generate for them. Because with local lead gen, the results are almost copy and paste across the businesses you work with. Whereas with e-commerce, there's too many other variables that come into play. Yeah, so having a really good offer to separate yourself, so get confidence in your service and then be able to differentiate through your offer.
Yeah, I think that would be a really great way. And I think that makes sense why right now people who are reaching out to me or anyone are probably not giving a damn, because they get 10 emails from 10 people, oh, we offer this, and then they don't give any guarantee.
Yeah, right.
Now I want to move on to the last part of today's podcast, which is, I call it the 7 deep Inspired Man questions. They're not really deep, but I love it. The first question is, what's the best advice you have ever received?
Oh man, the best advice I've ever received. It's not so much advice that it is something that I read once, and it's change your thoughts and you change your world.
Oh wow, change your thoughts and you change your world. Nice. The second question is, what's the worst piece of advice you have ever received?
Ask people for advice, because the majority of people that you ask for advice are not qualified to give you their opinion.
I like that a lot. I have received a similar one from someone, and that really resonated with me, because you're going to go ask advice from your friend who's not even doing anything. He's at a job, and then he's going to demotivate you.
He shoots you down because their own personal insecurities and so on, and their own motive comes into play. And then you could have had a really great idea that you've come away from thinking.
Yeah. That's why I now don't share all my ideas with people who I don't think will kind of see the big picture. And
it's difficult though, isn't it? Sometimes you really do want to share that idea. And
it's like from you, you just want to share it with them because you feel like this idea has so
excited.
much, excited and everything. But I guess something you learned hard the way.
Yeah.
The third question is, what's your definition of success?
Balance.
Are you balanced right now in your life? Do you have a balanced life?
I am getting there. Yeah. It's and actually more than balance. It's balance on a level that you can only actually achieve if you have had or ever achieved financial or purpose-based success, like impact. Because I don't think, like coming full circle to what I said earlier, it's very easy for me to say that the things that make you happy are a roof over your head, food, stability, family, love, nature. It's very easy for me to say that, but because the majority of people in the world can actually have access to that, but they will not appreciate it in the same level unless they have gone through the pain and the work and the determination and the grit that it takes to actually start a business, be financially free, or not even start a business, but put your all into something and lose that balance. You need to go through this kind of whole cycle yourself to actually be able to see the world as you have it in a new way.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that really makes sense as well. And when it comes to living a balanced life, when you're running a business, I feel like I don't think there's ever going to be a full-on balance of 50-50. There's always going to be a bit of 60-40, 60-40 or 70-30.
The caveat to balance is it's balance for you. Like, I don't need somebody to preach to me about how I need to have certain, like, it's not a cliche. You read it from the book and you need to make sure that you get this much sleep and you do this. It's the balance for you, you know, like, 'cause whatever you decide is your balance. Like, you know,
the 4-hour work week talks about the 4-hour work week, but it definitely is not a 4-hour work week.
Yeah.
The next question is, what was the hardest moment in your life?
The hardest moment in my life, I tell you what, I had a really hard moment in my life when actually it was my I want to say it was 2 years into launching the business, and it was my birthday, and I woke up on my birthday and I had no plans whatsoever, and I was richer than I'd ever been in my life, and I had more money, more materialistic things. And nobody was free. Nobody had planned anything. Nobody had arranged anything. And because everybody had presumed that because I was doing so well and because I was always doing stuff, that I already had plans. And so everybody presumed that. And I kind of was left on my own on my birthday with nothing around me. And I had this kind of, and that kind of triggered this thought spiral of, what am I doing? Like I have everything that I have ever wanted. I've achieved all the things that I've ever wanted. Looking back now, like I've kind of squashed that, but And it was a really difficult moment because that really triggered the kind of spiritual journey and self-finding and figuring out what I really wanted. Because at that time, up until that time, I spent a lot of my life having to be surrounded by other people, like always having to be in other people's company because I wasn't comfortable with my own. And
expectations as well. You would expect people to do something as well.
Yeah.
This isn't a question, but I just wanted to add, do you feel more fulfilled now, or you're still
Oh yeah, life's good, man.
Life's good.
Life's so good, man.
That's great to hear, because I think that's the level where everyone wants to be. You want to be rich, but at the same time be fulfilled.
Life is incredible. Yeah,
that's really good to hear. The next question is, what's your biggest regret in life?
I don't have regrets. I really don't. Like, I know that's a cliche answer. I really don't have regrets. Like, everything that I have ever done has led me to the point that I am right now. So
I think I get that from everyone, and including myself. I always say I have no regrets. But then recently, I think last week, I saw this video from, I think, Joe Rogan's podcast or something, where the guy was saying, people say, I don't have any regrets. But in a sense, you do have regret in a way that, I could have gone to help my mom this day. But I guess that those small regrets are something we don't really count, because they don't really define the person who we become.
It's like when you said that, I thought to myself, and it's one thing that I thought about before. I mentioned that I haven't always been very good with delayed gratification, and like in the first year of the business, I bought a BMW M4, and in a few months after that, I bought a Porsche Cayman GT4, and so on and so forth, and spent loads of money on big holidays. And sometimes I'm like, I wonder, like, if I would be making not 200, 300 grand a month now, I wonder if I'd be making $1 million a month right now if I didn't do that in the early stage. And I'm like, well, so fucking what? I'm going to do it anyway. So then you kind of, you think about those things, and then you realize the lesson that you've got from it. And actually I got to enjoy those things young, and I got to do that. And then I now actually feel more whole and humble now. And so I think I kind of talked myself out of regret, you know?
I think I really get that. And that's definitely something I still would say, that everything I've gone through happened for a reason, and that's the reason why I'm here.
Yeah.
The next question is, and I don't know if you are into a lot of reading books and stuff, but what would be the 3 best books to read to grow your mindset, grow SMMA? I think one of them could be your book. And thirdly, become a more fulfilled person, I would say.
Good question. The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod.
Okay.
That book changed my life in the initial stages and taught me about morning routine. I was someone that woke up at 8:30 every morning and rushed to work.
I don't know how you do morning routines. I tried today. Today I was supposed to wake up at 7. I woke up at 8:30.
Did you?
Because I could not get out of my bed at 7.
When I started the business, I woke up at 5 a.m. I now wake up at 6. But I wasn't that guy. I never was that guy. Fine. You should read the book. It's a good book.
I think I'm definitely going to give it.
It's a good book. Tough. I would also say that Atomic Habits by James Clear is a great book as well. I really enjoyed that. And probably Way of the Superior Man.
Okay, nice. I know one of them, which is Atomic Habits. And the next question is related, which is, what are the 3 habits that got you where you are right now?
3 habits that got me. Actually, do you know another book that I would just like to throw into the mix there is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might have to give that a read, because
awesome book. Awesome.
Do you meditate?
I do. Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Every day?
A lot every day, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, my thing is today I couldn't because I woke up late, but I guess I should be more disciplined in meditating every day, which I do, but
I find it's easier to integrate as a habit if you integrate it with another habit. So if you add it to something else, if you do like meditation alone, so I also do red light therapy. Which is using UV red light, infrared light. It stimulates the growth of your mitochondria, your energy cells and stuff. It's just really great for your overall kind of health and energy and sleep as well. There's lots of benefit. But I sit in front of that every morning and then I do 10 minutes and I meditate at the same time. So because I've connected it, I had like years of on-off meditation, but I found it hard to unless I connected it to another habit. So maybe that is connecting it to straight after you jump out of the shower every morning, or when you come back from the gym, or after you've eaten breakfast, whatever, just connect it to something else. And I find that's normally easier.
I think that I'm definitely giving that a try, connecting with something else. That will definitely work. So I guess one of your habits could be meditation. What would be the other two habits you would say?
So other two healthy habits.
Habits which got you where you are today. So meditation definitely helped you to kind of get the mindset and be clear in your head as well. So what would be the other two? Yeah,
I mean, actually, just kind of that goes alongside that. It's a similar one, but it's getting out in nature, like getting out in nature as often as possible on your own. And the last habit I would say is just focusing on my sleep, really, really focusing on my sleep and just making sure I'm getting good quality sleep.
Nice. I like them. I think these are habits which are the core foundation of how you will function throughout the day. Because if you don't function well, then your business won't function well as well. So
exactly,
these were three great little tips for me as well. So thank you so much once again for joining me on this podcast. Actually, before, there's one question I wanted to ask, which is, what do you think makes you successful?
I think what makes me,
as in you, just yourself, what is that one thing that made you successful, which is within you?
An obsession with progression.
That's really nice. Obsession with progression. And were you always like this since the start?
I've always had a chip on my shoulder, and I've always had a point to. I've always needed something to prove.
Nice.
And so, failure's never been an option for me.
I think that's going to be a perfect way to also come to the end of this podcast. And guys, everyone listening right now, if you don't know who Jordan is, all the links will be in the description to his social media. Once again, go check his content out. He's definitely posting a lot more regularly now compared to before, and great content. If you're into SMMA or if you want to start a social media marketing agency, check out his YouTube. There's a lot of free stuff as well, which is really valuable because I've seen the comments and people love to watch that as well. So thank you so much, Jordan, for joining today.
Man. Loved it. Thanks, man.
Thank you so much, man.
Enjoyed it.
Yes, indeed. Perfect.